Thank you. You can hear me. Sounds like I'm on. I'm Brian, and we're going into a case now, live case from Novo Nordisk. With me today, I have Henrik. He has been playing an architect role, helping to shape the solution that we're showing here. And I will take you through the easy steps, the end user perspective of this, 20 minutes or so. And then you'll hear about what is really behind the scenes, the producer perspectives, and sometimes the less beautiful reality of how we build things behind the scenes. So, we're representing Novo Nordisk. It's a pharma company, and I have skipped the beautiful company slides, except this one. So bear with me for a second. Novo Nordisk is a pharma company, yes, but I prefer to say we are a diabetes company. So at least for 100 years since insulin was discovered, we have been producing insulin for diabetes patients across the world. And it has worked out fantastic. Then around 15 years ago, we discovered a side effect with one of our diabetes products. Normally that's not something you want, but in this case, people are starting to lose weight. And that actually caught the attention of many people. Not just our finance officer, but Hollywood and the press, and everything exploded. We had Wegovy coming out across the world. We had, at this time of year, last year I think, we were actually the most valuable company in Novo Nordisk in Europe, period. Since then, we have been taking some hits. Reality has also been kicking in because you cannot grow that fast without having some trouble. But we are still producing more than ever. We are selling more than ever of diabetes drugs, but also now obesity drugs. Now, inside Novo Nordisk, global data and AI, it sounds like a beautiful marriage, doesn't it? And it kind of is. In reality, two departments merging. Traditional data management, because we need good data. Underneath the AI. Together we are like 250 people across the world. It's a central unit. And what you get from us inside Novo Nordisk, that would be the platforms, the data lakes, it would be the data management, it would be the business intelligence, the platforms. And then the line of business, the different areas, they would sort of rent or leverage our services to make their solutions. The biggest, most expanded solutions would be something like the ChatGPT, an internal version of that one, but also the Power BI is incredibly large. And then we have the marketplace. What is the marketplace? And our ambition to really create a connected data landscape across Novo Nordisk. That's what we are digging into. So, to keep it simple, the Novo Nordisk marketplace here is really a platform. It connects data with people. And I don't just write data, I write data products because we are talking data in a data mesh sense, where data has been prepared, packaged for reuse. So it's easy for someone to go and build on top of the existing data. So what we really want to see happening is that people, and by people I mean everyone in Novo Nordisk, they can find data easily. They can go in and see if they understand and trust this data for their next project. And if they like it, they can request access and reuse it. All in a simple platform like this. Why do we want this to happen? Well, at least 3 reasons here. So, when we reuse data, we speed up Novo Nordisk, we accelerate our business projects. If you're building a dashboard, something like that, it can take in real life months and months, not to build the dashboard, but to get to the data. That has been my experience when I have worked as a business analyst inside Novo Nordisk. Well, you can find out where the data sits, which system, but then when you want to take it out of that system, put it on a data lake, create your pipelines, who can take those decisions, manage those data, who will own it, who will make sure that only the right people can see it, all that is where it takes time. So if this has already been done by someone, if someone has done all the hard legwork, created the data for you, then don't start from scratch, just start on your use case. Then we want this to be democratizing data across Novo Nordisk. So today our data landscape is rather technical. So there's a lot of data lakes. Our engineers, they love it. Not so much our business people, our governance teams, our project managers. They don't like to go into 10 different data platforms, different query languages to understand, do we have data about something like the ones that we need? So, making it easier. And then speaking our engineers, they actually prefer to spend their time on coding, on automating stuff. They don't particularly like to do a lot of support or when people ask questions about the data, what can I do with it, what can't I do with it, can I create a copy of this here and there? So they would really prefer that this is much more self-service. So that's at least 3 reasons to look into a data marketplace. Essentially, before all this started, we were called the Semantic Layer Project. We transformed into a data marketplace. I'll show you a little bit why we went in that direction, but it's still very much connected. Very, very simple slide to point to a few key things here. So imagine this is like 2% of our architecture landscape slide, because we don't want all the details and all the messy things here. I just want to tell you that anyone in Novo Nordisk can go into the data marketplace today and find data. And by anyone, I mean no access restriction, no asking for permissions. Anyone can go in and ask for data. Inside the marketplace, what we have over here, we have curated data products. So again, back to we don't want all the data across Novo Nordisk. We want the things that have been prepared for reuse, the actual data products. So while we can, and sometimes do, scan all the big data lakes, then what we put in the marketplace is really just the key pieces of data that are ready to be reused. And it's not the actual data, it's the metadata about the data. So we are creating this virtual layer on top of all the complexities down here. So metadata, products up there, and then we also add contracts. I'll get back to what they are and how they look. So I just indicated down here with research, development, product supply that we have a lot of business areas. They are strong. They are sometimes a little bit siloed. There are much more than 4, around 20 something on the top layer in Novo Nordisk, and then many more underneath. So just indicating that this is an enterprise-wide solution. So now we imagine that we are in a project in Novo Nordisk, and we want to understand how patients are taking our drugs. We have these pen systems where we inject insulin or obesity drugs, and we want to understand if patients are actually adhering to what they should be if they want to do this in the most optimal way for them. We have a team gathered, some technical people, but actually mostly around Novo Nordisk, the project teams, they would be project managers, data scientists, subject matter experts. Not technical people, but they need to know, where is this data? Is there something ready for reuse? Can I trust it? What are the terms to reuse it? How do I access it? All these questions we would like to answer in a matter of minutes rather than weeks or months. So the demo, and now we do it with slides. So this is how it looks like at the moment for the human version of a data marketplace inside Novo Nordisk. We have an AI search on top here. It's actually prompts that are being pushed out to an open AI model and then querying a database behind the scene. But we also have the domains. I think was it Kurt or someone asking about taxonomies? Yes, we have taxonomies at a high level. So this is actually Novo Nordisk domains. It's not the organization, even though it looks like it. For example, our organization would say R&D, but this is 2 different domains because clinical data is very different from early research data. So this looks a little bit like Netflix or your favorite streaming services because you have these horizontal scrollings. You can't really find love movies or crime scenes in there, but a lot of data products and domains are in there. So you can browse that as a human being and see what is most popular or what is happening in a specific area or topic. Yeah. So you can see my first question up there. Do we have any data from our pen systems for commercial use cases? Plain English language question to the system. Not something you can do on your average data lake because, well, even if it has AI enabled, then you are missing the metadata on most of these business systems. So you only in a marketplace where you have metadata, you can do something like this. The results coming out would be something like this. In this case, we are finding an answer and 2 cards. The 2 cards is for a data product, and a data contract is actually referring to the same data set underneath. I'll show you how that looked like in more detail. So if we are interested in this data, then we will go and explore a little bit about what is this data product actually. And in this case, let's see what we can find. There's a description for this data. Plain English language again. The more, the better for the LLMs. This is probably way too little, but often, well, it's better than nothing to begin with. There is ownership, very, very key to anything on the marketplace. We don't put any data up here that doesn't have a clear owner, meaning either a team or a set of initials, persons, a team standing by this data. We have basic lineage, and lineage can be a lot of very advanced tracking of where data originates from. For now, we are just showing where does this data sit and what is the source system. Something rather simple. You can go down and explore deeper down how the data is then transformed along the way. But in the front row here, it's just basics. We have the assets, what are the tables or files actually behind this data product. Then we have output ports, which sounds a little bit technical. To me, it's just a variation of the data product. It means that either you have different subsets of a data product, so maybe, let's say this is about what is this? Research data. So there are different variations. Sometimes you just want a subset of the data, or it could be that the data exists in different forms and shapes. So sometimes you can use this via an API. Sometimes you get an S3 bucket somewhere and can work with that. We can see who consumes this data already, and then we're moving on to the contract. And this is relatively new to us, but we are adding contracts to everything on the data marketplace, meaning that we can see the terms and conditions for reuse, what are accepted use cases, what is not accepted, what is the classification of the data. And we are adding data models, so we can get at least some sort of definitions for the different attributes we have on the actual data. There are also some quality rules you can add and apply. And then finally, the green stuff up there, request access, there's a button. People can go and access this, no matter if this data sits on a Snowflake or a Databricks or whatever data lake, and there are many in Novo Nordisk. We will try to guide people to access, so they don't have to go to our internal access system and find out which AD group is actually giving the right access. We are guiding them. So how did we get here? Well, behind the scenes, we have some governance colleagues. They have given us some minimum requirements for what should a data product and a contract actually look like. This is our version of it. This is then implemented in how you saw it before. So this is just high-level requirements. But it gives us some good indications on what we will then build in the marketplace. How do we then make this reality? For example, FAIR is a concept that we like in a research-based company. We want our data to be findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And how do we nudge people to do that? So for example, here we put some labels on You can see some green, yellow markings there. So it's a score nudging the owners of the data product to complete the metadata as much as possible. So this is due for our next release. Yeah. How are we doing on time? Are we getting 2 minutes? Then I have to hurry up a little, but we have 2 slides here. So yesterday we talked about how semantic layers can exist in many different forms and shapes and architectures. And I think we also concluded that sometimes, there's an ideal world and then there's reality. So I took this as one example of maybe the ideal world where we have a semantic layer beautifully sitting here and one data lake which pulls all the sources and a lot of consumers on top. Looks nice. I apologize for ruining this a little bit. So I put something on top of here. I can agree that we have the data products as a thin layer on top of this. We don't have one lake, we have, I don't know how many, too many data lakes on there, all forms and shapes. The semantic layers, in reality, for us, have been born and built in the silos or in the sources. So, for example, finance, they have, of course, their metrics. And anyone working in Novo Nordisk, finance would know these and where to find them. Manufacturing, they have a huge taxonomy of all their factories, their production lines, their sensors, equipment, everything, millions and millions of unique addresses, also nicely organized, but not really talking to other systems yet. And in research, they have amazing ontologies. They have big teams building ontologies. Often it becomes a little bit, to me, when I just hear the word, okay, they're building ontologies. Why? What's in it for me? But it's actually also in that space that I have seen the best implementation of graph databases, the ones that really change the work and the world for our scientists every day. So if you have good models over here, then you can do amazing things which actually impact innovation and discovery. I can tell about it maybe over lunch or drinks or something, but I don't bring slides. But this is where I've really seen everything semantic layer make a really impact on Novo Nordisk. I think that concludes my presentation here, and then Henrik, will you show us reality behind the scenes?
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Henrik. I work as an architect on the data marketplace, and I'm more of the technical type, so I've sort of had my hands in different parts of this also. I would just like to thank our sort of North American colleagues. They are sort of why we are invited here today, and also to Zach and Ulit for the opportunity. We did some joint work earlier this year and also last year, and that was a pleasure. Before I sort of really get started, I just want to drive home the point that it is an amazingly complicated landscape for all kinds of reasons in Novo Nordisk. We have, we sort of kid and say, we have one of each. And we do. We have one of each, and it's not because we are terribly bad at this. This is because it's a very old company. And obviously you build stuff, and then it stays around. And particularly because we are in this world of FDA, compliance, GXP, what have you, there are things you can't just shut down. So you have to keep them around. and that sort of becomes technical debt at some point, for better and worse. Sometimes new is not always like fantastic, but some platforms do show their age when they get to a certain point. Yeah, we have like everything, like most of you also have. Like we have proper data platforms, we have all the unstructured data from analysts and scientists, lab notebooks, what have you. We have it all. Then I've thought a lot about this talk today, and what it really means, this semantic layer thing. And really, it's sort of probably prepping for AI, what we're doing right now. We're just like standing in front of this wave here. And just yesterday, Claude Sonnet 4.5 was released by Anthropic. And you have like this very short run of AI model releases, which sort of just gives us ever-increasing functionality. Like it was like laughable in maybe in 2018, but okay, still impressive. It was really useful last year, and today it is like if you don't use it, you're lost probably. That's my take on that. Then you have like AI tools just everywhere. It's like if you're using a tool, if there's not AI embedded, it will be tomorrow. That's like for certain. And that goes for the semantic layers also, I guess. Yeah, last year actually it sort of bing, it hit my head. So I changed my title on LinkedIn to Data and Context Architect, because this is really what it's all about. It's like trying to sort of figure out how we structure this and how we protect this. Some people spoke about governance. How do we make sure that we don't like give OpenAI or Anthropic or Mistral or all the other language model companies or providers? How do we not give them the crown jewels here? This is going to be important for us in the long run. Yeah. This is like a very idealized life cycle of a typical data product like you would do. You have a funnel sort of started off by business people. You go through some kind of process. Maybe there's a prototyping happening here. You follow on, then there's some data engineering stuff happening also. And at the end, you go to production. And maybe there's a little circular flow here in this. And this was what we are sort of presenting on the marketplace Brian showed. We are sort of displaying what's the final product. But obviously, there's been a history here. And that history is all the context. So you have, in this end of the funnel, you might have like requirements documents, case descriptions. Maybe you go a little deeper into the pipeline and you will have like lab notebooks because we're a medical company. But if you do something else, you will have other analysis done. We have introduced stuff like data contracts, so promises on data, basically. You will have requirements, you will have all your project team sites, and all this stuff. And over here in the data engineering part, we have the data lakes. In Novo Nordisk case, it's like lakes. And maybe you enrich it. Maybe you tack on ontologies, glossaries, data models, all kinds of things, and it ends up in sort of documented format because it's like it's supposed to go into production. So you're actually you're supposed to take this seriously. But all these parts they form up your context, your full sort of your full sort of knowledge base that you can pull from. I did a prototype for our American counterparts, and this in the middle here with the colored boxes, that's the context we were looking at. And this is not secret. This is a commercially available data set called Komodo. Shows some interactions and some patient data and some stuff. But it's to illustrate where the stuff that you feed your AI agents, where that actually comes from. So you can have, like, say, data models, glossary parts. We pluck the good parts. Just imagine that it's magical, that you can just pick the right stuff, stuff it in there. We have our contracts with all the good descriptions, the data owners that you need to contact. We put that in there as well. And the green ugly box here on the right is just like a dump from the database. So it's like the naive, really naive table descriptions, or maybe you have some files with column names and some stuff. And you can put as much as your AI model can digest in there, right? This is not really new. So just imagine that this is your prompt. Yeah. So that's where your full pipeline is supposed to sort of provide all this for you. So if you're only feeding in the data lake, for instance, you're kind of missing out on all the good thoughts that went into the requirements part. And do you really want to repeat the BI tool that you built last year? Well, you don't know actually, unless you wrote something about that and then did some analysis. And so this is important going forward. Because this is about the practicalities that we're talking about with the marketplace here. We are looking at sort of prepping for this. So everything that we can think of that we can automate, we do that. It's pipelines first, it's automation, everything. So the contract that Brian showed, this is also a contract, but now it's in a text form. And that's just because that's what AI engines eat. and we can also govern it quite easily because it's something we will push into Git in some form. You might use GitHub or GitLab or whatever. Anything's really fine as long as it's under source control. And this is easy to source control and by extension govern. We're using a few different data contracts to describe this data. Yeah, just ramming home the point here that the contracts actually, they start fairly early because it is a promise on data. So it's not a contract you sign on your house or maybe you buy a car. That's not the type of contract it is. This is a promise that we will deliver this type of data if you subscribe to it. That's what the contract will do. It'll tell you everything or lots of good things about the quality and describe it well and maybe refer to other links and so on. And then obviously in the data engineering part, once we get to this point, it's just all automated. We will just publish to the marketplace, we will publish this data product and it's automatic. The engineering team doesn't have to do anything except write the contract. But that happens like early in the pipeline. So the automation step here is super important to us. And obviously, because it's in source control, by extension, GitHub, GitLab, something like this, we will have also a lot of documentation in sort of wiki form or text form. That's really the preferred media, if you ask me. I would prefer in a wiki form, but obviously if you have a data product, it would be a repository on its own. And with that, you can sort of embed, say, a documentation portion in a wiki format, which you can easily just publish to a website if you like, but it will all be in text form. For all kinds of reasons, it's easy to govern. If you, as a business person, say, want to update it, you can just go and get an engineer to do it if you don't feel comfortable in say, the command line or something like this. And even though there is some friction in this process, I think most people sort of acknowledge that it's not that big of a problem practically, I think, because you also have to think, you can't just update the documentation like that on a product which is in production, because it has to align with the rest of the story in this data product. So these are sort of entangled entities somehow. This is not me being extremely poor at making slides. This is my attempt at saying, okay, so we have this full funnel here. But really, the written communication skills are super, super important. It's always been this way, but it's become even more important. So if you are not good at writing things down, you are probably not going to be able to succeed in this new world here. I've been a developer for many, many years, and we have had a reputation for not writing documentation because we didn't like it. Guilty as charged, but it is actually super important that you document your data, that you also write good documentation. It's not just writing something. You can't just ask ChatGPT to put a blurb in there. You actually have to put some blood, sweat, and tears in there. But it also extends further back in the funnel, because if you only document, say, the code base, it's actually far right here. We want to know what happened while you were building this product. That's the gold that's there. But it takes a little bit of work, honestly, to up the standard so that you get more than one sentence. And it was also I liked your response to your question to ChatGPT, because you said actually that you need to ask the right question. So that's also what we want to uncover at this point here. I think we are sort of, moving to the controversial part here. So just to keep it up a little bit here. We are in the business of turning data into information and extract knowledge from this. This is all of what we're doing. We have many tools to do it. Knowledge graphs might be the right tool. Relation database even. I've built many star schemas. But we have this new tool, that language model thing, in lack of a better term. Is it perfect today? Not really. But it is really, really useful. And you can sort of see in which direction this is headed. And it's next year. So one other question here is obviously, is this better than a BI tool? Is this going to replace that? Is it better than a custom ontology? Is it going to replace that? And one thing I want to inject here in this discussion here is this cost of metadata. So it's like an ontology can be a super powerful tool. We have examples of that, and I think Brian, you can sort of ask Brian afterwards. But it has to be the right tool. Otherwise, it's quite expensive to build. So you can't just throw this. If everything looks like a nail, you're just gonna a hammer. Not exactly the way it always is supposed to be. So cost of metadata is a big thing. That's also why I said wiki, because it's like super cheap. I write everything in text files because it's like it doesn't cost me anything. I can easily interact with it. I can shove it into a prompt. It's like frictionless. If I have it in a PowerPoint like this, this actually started as a markdown file to me. But if it's in this form, it has to be transformed into another form for the language models to be used, or to be useful for a language model. A few reflections here. Obviously, what works or doesn't work for us, Novo Nordisk, is different from a small to medium-sized company because of all the reasons I already mentioned. The last point here on mergers and acquisitions, it's just like there's an ever sort of an ongoing churn of our in our sort of data. We will have the new next greatest tool next year. It's like Databricks this year, but it's like whatever next year. We had like Snowflake a few years ago. That was like all the rage. But this is like It's just always going to happen. And we will buy companies because we are that size and inherit all their data infrastructure until we can either merge it or get rid of it somehow. Yeah, there's also some practicalities here. We probably don't want to be one platform because it's likely unattainable. We have like different skills, and I can't. Let's say we all had to train in the same tool in this room. That would be a big task. So there's some practicalities in a big global company. And then I think I'll end on some open questions. I think. What comes next? I mean, if you look if you try to sort of squint into the future, what's a semantic layer actually in 12 months? I built a prototype last year where you just ask questions, and it actually worked kind of okay. It was not there, but just based on that small, tiny context I showed you, it actually did quite well. And today the language models are just even better. So if I chuck the same context in, it would be a much nicer experience. But I could write SQL queries, I could go and ask a little bit and sort of steer me in the right direction and so on. So it's like, where are we in 12 months from here? It's just like, hang on tight, I think. Yeah, and maybe also what will go away. What won't be here next year when this conference hopefully is also again. I think this is it. Mm-hmm. Thanks. And we're like 2 minutes out from lunch, so it's like, unless there are any questions, otherwise just hit us up during lunch or one of the other breaks here. Thanks. Mm-hmm.
If I should add one answer to one of your questions, I think it would be in the future, we are not building just for humans. Everything you saw here was a nice web portal. Talk to our AI guys back home. Agentic AI, it's coming. There's an MCP server sitting under this. This is all API enabled. Machines will start to talk to the marketplace to get access to the data via the marketplace. It will need all the semantics and the contracts that we are putting on top of this, just like we will as people.
The lost slide, which is not here, had as a headline, context also for humans. We are second in this line here. It's AI first, humans second. I think there was a question. There was a question, yeah. So I think the value proposition for Novo Nordisk is, as I said, what works for us might not work for you. Say you're a Databricks company or Snowflake company, and you can keep it all there. There are marketplaces in these tools, so they might be good enough. I think we wanted a shared platform which was spanning all the data lakes that we had. We also had some very old data lakes where we also still want to pull out some data products. They're not going to go away. So it's not, we couldn't migrate all to, say, some bronze layer in Databricks and be okay with that. So I think that's trying to span all this, these many data lakes. That's the value. Obviously, it's in one place. There are a lot of subtleties in this. The curation step here of that stuff gets onto this marketplace means that it's been through some iterations. It carries a description. It carries an owner, as Brian said, and so it's like there are these things that are critical, really. And otherwise, you're just going to find this orphaned thing on there. And then the duplication. there's no guarantees that we won't get duplications, but just getting the visibility and the ability to ask that question in one place, that is also, I think that will sort of go a long way to be able to curate the sort of forest of data products, because if you can't have a sort of say central place, how can you even start asking the question, is this product duplicated? And then we get into some nuances of when are two products similar? So, but it gets a little complicated down the line.
We will have a mesh-like setup. So in each domain, there will be a governance team. You can also think of them sort of a portfolio manager. So before you build anything, go check the marketplace.
Yeah.
And then you create a contract before you actually do the actual data product work, because then everyone else can see you are building this. Maybe it comes in 6 weeks or 6 months, but you can actually start to say, yes, I want this, and see who's building this.
One other thing about the marketplace here is that you mentioned data lineage. It was not properly shown here in the slides, but we don't have maybe real data lineage, but we have provenance. So we can actually tell which products your product came from. So by these ports and all this connectivity you do, when you publish, you say, I take from this. So that gives you great insights and also our ability to analyze it.
How about another round for Brian and Henrik?
Thanks.
Well done.